comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's all right.
Hello, Fortitude audience. Thank you so much for joining us again today. I am sitting in the studio with my amazing hunky husband, Amos.
Hi.
And today we have Nick Kiesow with us. Nick,
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't even remember how we met or when we met. I think it might have just been me reaching out to you through social media.
It was, yeah, almost, I think it was January last year that we started kind of communicating and going back and forth.
I've been following your journey through social media. And so I know that there's a lot of times people will say social media is not a good thing. And I beg to differ on that for reasons like this. Like the amount of visibility that you have given people into your recovery of what has happened has been really beautiful. I have been cheering you on as a stranger, but now as a friend.
That's right. Thank you.
So, Nick, we just through your whole story, and your beautiful bride, Kari, I've had the opportunity to meet her as well. I just share a little bit about you and your family and who you are, and then we're going to dive into your story. Yeah.
Born and raised in Sioux Falls. Kari and I have been married now 20 years. We have 2 kids. They're in high school, Lillian and Henry, junior and a sophomore. We really just like hanging out, being together. Our kids are into golf. We play golf together. And just, we have family in Sioux Falls. My wife's from a small town just west of Sioux Falls, about an hour and a half, family there. And so really just kind of close knit all the way around.
Okay. So originally you're from Sioux Falls. Where's Kari from?
Kimball, South Dakota.
Kimball.
Yeah.
Okay. How did the two of you meet?
We were working together at a bank while we were going to college. We were part-time tellers.
Okay.
And just happened to cross paths that way. That was a long, long time ago.
20 years.
Yeah.
Not that long, Nick.
Nah.
We're still young.
Yeah. That's what I keep telling myself, I guess.
Mid-40s, I say. Yeah. I was like, man, we're getting old. And he keeps saying, no, we're not. We're just in our mid-40s.
Just getting started.
Keep resetting that, getting old age.
Yeah, we do. Mm-hmm. When I look at our 16-year-old, 17-year-old, he's always like, you guys are old. Yeah. It's like, thanks for the reminder. So, Nick, you being from, like, what's your favorite thing about this area? Like this small town, right? Because you haven't left.
No, I haven't. And I mean, I always say Sioux Falls is the biggest small town in the world, right?
It is.
I mean, it is, as it is growing, you still can't go to a store, a coffee shop, or anything like that without bumping into a handful of people that you know, which is great. And so we're in a neighborhood that we absolutely love with, families that have, kids around our kids' age. And it's just perfect.
Good. Yeah. Family, especially for what you guys have experienced the last couple of years, having family and friends around you as a community has been really substantial.
Yeah. I like to say we've learned and confirmed a lot about what we already knew, right? We learned a lot about ourselves these last couple of years, but we confirmed a lot that we already believed what our friends to be and how they've helped.
Oh, Nick. Okay. I just want to dive in because I don't want to lose time chit-chatting. Amos, so I say get to the meat.
No, it's fine. We've got to start.
Oh man. Okay. So October 15th of 2022.
Yes.
That day, some big stuff happened. So can you just go there with us?
Yeah. Knowing what we know now, I'll kind of unwind it a couple of days prior to that.
Yep.
I had a spinal cord stroke. We didn't know that at the time.
You said spinal cord stroke.
Spinal cord stroke.
Which is probably a phrase most people have never heard of.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't know that at the time. In fact, we didn't know that for quite a long period of time after even October 15th. But what we know now is spinal cord strokes typically have some sort of pain event associated to them, and then you lose function below the site. in your ability to move and everything. And so October 15th was a Saturday. That Thursday evening, a couple of days before, our daughter was playing volleyball, and I was sitting in the bleachers, go home, sore back, like, hey, I think I'm going to go to the chiropractor the next morning just because I just wasn't feeling very well. And I'll do that a handful of times a year, no big deal. Go to the chiropractor on Friday morning, get a normal adjustment, go to work. And I remember texting my wife around lunch that I just like, God, I felt just out of sorts. Like I just felt just kind of jelly-legged. I just didn't feel right for whatever reason. And as that afternoon progressed, it felt like my legs were asleep, my right leg in particular. Okay. Like I just had that
tingle.
Feeling. Yeah. Kind of.
Yep.
And I just couldn't shake it. And tried walking around the office, doing all the things. And I told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to go home. It was about 3:00. And I went home and I called the chiropractor again and just kind of told them, hey, I'm experiencing something I've never experienced before. And they had me come back down that evening before 5. And they just tried some electronic stimulation on my lower back just to see if anything would happen. And they said, come back tomorrow morning, Saturday. So that Friday evening, I'm walking around the house, up and down stairs, no problem. My right leg is jumping, as you are seeing now.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that had ever happened. And we're kind of laughing about it, like, oh, this is really bizarre. What's going on here? So we wake up Saturday morning, and I couldn't move my right leg at all. From my hip down, it would not move whatsoever. And so we left the house that morning. We had, this is actually kind of funny. We had one of our son's friends staying with us the entire weekend. And we left the house and told them, hey, we'll be back by lunch, guys. We're going to go get this figured out. Mm-hmm. We'll be back by lunch. And I can barely move at this point. I'm holding on to everything, just trying to walk using my left leg only. And our son's friend had even asked after we had left, unbeknownst to me at the time, he's like, hey, what was wrong with your dad's leg there? And my son goes, what are you talking about? He had no clue anything was going on. So that was always kind of funny to me. But so we head back to the chiropractor that morning, and I'm using my wife to walk in kind of as a human crutch to get inside. And as soon as I got inside, they put me on a table, and he's like, you need to go to the OI clinic. They have a walk-in clinic.
What is OI?
Orthopedic Institute.
Okay.
So just to see if something was going on. He's like, we'll call ahead. We'll see. We'll let them know you're coming, and we'll tell them what's happening. So at that point, leaving the chiropractor, they put me in a wheelchair just because I really couldn't walk at all. Still just in the right leg only. And we get to the OI clinic, and they had called ahead. So they knew what was going on, and they run through a series of tests and x-rays. And I'm like, I've never been in a car accident. I've never broken a bone. I didn't play tackle football.
That's what I was going to ask you. If you had any previous injuries at all in your body? Nothing.
And so I'm in a stand-up x-ray, holding on, trying to stay motionless and not really being able to do anything with that right leg, obviously. And the x-rays came back negative. Of course, there was nothing wrong with me. And the PA that was there that morning ran through some tests and said, hey, if this gets, we can't get you into an MRI machine until Monday. And that's what we need to see what's going on. If this gets worse, come back or just go right to the ER at that point. We're going to send you home. And he stepped out of the room, and my wife and I are like, man, we are like a block from the ER. I don't know what would be worse at this point. But he came back into the room and said, you know what? Just go to the ER right now.
With no explanation?
He made a call to the doctor and just said, there's no sense in sending you home, because what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. Nothing good is going to happen. It's not going to magically get better, come Monday. Right?
Yeah.
So he's like, again, we'll call ahead, let them know you're coming. We head over to the ER, and it took took a couple hours probably before we got into the MRI machine. And by the time we got out of the MRI machine, I could no longer move my left leg. So
it's getting worse.
It was getting worse. And I kind of chalked it up initially. I'm in that MRI tube. I've never been in one before, laying on this tiny metal, board. I thought maybe it's just, that leg's falling asleep or whatever. Because we have literally no clue what's going on. We're not really nervous. We're thinking this is all going to get worked out and we're going to go home and that's how this is going to go down. But we get back into the ER room after the MRI, and I told my wife, I'm like, I can't move my left leg now. And so the doctors came in and they started doing a series of tests at that point, basically with kind of like a tuning fork. They would hit it, vibrate it, see if I could feel the vibrations at various parts of my legs. Mm-hmm. They would take pins and stick pins in me to see if I could feel that and where that would go. They would touch me with like a cotton ball, a cotton swab, to see if I could feel that. And the pins, I could not feel the pin sticking into my skin up until it got to a certain point. So they were kind of testing to see where that feeling line was. And, it kept moving up and up and up. And, eventually it settled and right below my sternum. And, they go above it and I can feel it. They go below it and I can't. So that was the definitive line. They took a Sharpie and just drew a big line on my chest. Oh. And that was the line that they were watching for the next few hours to make sure it didn't continue to go further up.
What are they telling you during this time?
They're not really telling me anything. They're trying to just figure out what was going on. They had a neurologist that was brought in who was a gentleman that we had known for a long period of time through family, and just by happenstance that he happened to be the guy on call that day, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it was very reassuring once he got into the room and started doing these tests. And eventually, once everything settled and that line wasn't moving, after repeated tests, coming back to make sure it didn't move, he had came in, the neurologist came in and just said, listen, you're a paraplegic. We don't know why.
It's okay.
This is just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So fresh.
Yeah, it is.
Not a word that you ever saw in your future.
No. And even when all these tests were going on, like it was still relatively, my wife and I were very calm. Like there was really no emotion at that point for us. It felt like,
yeah.
But he stated that, we don't know why. He goes, but we're treating you for a virus, autoimmune, and stroke. They had already had me on an IV medicine to kind of combat some of those things.
Okay.
And he goes, and we're going to figure out what's going on via process of elimination. He's like, we're going to check into the hospital. And at that point, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not going home. I was still had the hope of like, hey, we're just going to get out of here just fine.
Hospitals are supposed to fix it.
Yeah.
Like, fix
exactly.
me. I'm here in the emergency room.
Yeah.
Give it whatever I need and fix it.
Yeah. So at that point, he said that. And, I vividly remember looking at my legs, started to cry. I look at my wife and she's crying for the first time. And then that was really I don't remember anything else until I'm in the hospital getting checked in by a nurse. I was just all by myself because my wife had to go home. We had, kids at home who had no clue what was going on. Kind of kept them in the dark on everything. But that was really kind of it. Then getting into the hospital, then it just started all the testing to try to figure out what was going on between blood work, spinal taps. You name the test, I've had it probably 2 or 3 times. Because once they all came back negative, they eliminated, that it wasn't an autoimmune disease like MS or things like that. And we were just simply left with spinal cord stroke.
Okay. Through this, go ahead.
Just looking back, now that you know what it is.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was on their mind as a possibility? Or do you feel like it's such a rare thing that it just took a long time to even that to be a possibility?
I think it was a possibility. I think one of the doctors that we met with said he had only seen one in his career. And so, keep in mind, while we're doing all these tests and waiting for the results, we're doing our Google MD and trying to figure out what the heck's going on as well. And we got to the point where we were actually rooting for it to be a stroke because the way to get out of that or improve yourself that way is through rehab. Mm-hmm. And if you can regain movement and functionality, you have it. Where if it's an autoimmune disease, that's going to be something that you're going to be battling for the remainder of your life.
And it progressively gets worse versus rehab helps it get better.
Correct.
Okay. Yes.
Now, your spinal cord has spinal fluid in it. It flows between your base of your spine and through your brainstem. Is that right? Did I get that right?
I don't know. It sounds great. I think so.
I think that's right.
Yeah, it sounds good.
And there's some blood in there.
Yeah.
Is it a blood blockage?
Yeah. So I did have a blood clot that blocked the blood flow to the spinal cord.
Okay.
And so...
And do you know where that blockage was?
It was at the T6 level of my spine.
Okay.
Which
inside your spinal column?
Correct. Mm-hmm. And it actually hit the anterior part of my spine, which is why I can't feel temperature or pain below that point. But I can feel touch and I can feel my feet in space. Yeah. Whereas if it would have happened on the front part of my spine, I might have got the anterior, posterior part incorrect. But if it would happen on the front part of my spine, then I wouldn't be able to feel like the touch piece of it is how it was explained to me.
So there's different nerves for different feelings.
Correct.
In different parts of the spinal cord.
And so when learning that, the tests that they did with the sharp and the soft, and they were doing, putting cold things against me as well, that I couldn't tell if it was warm or cold. That was letting them know really what part it was affecting on the spine.
So it's more than just your vertical positioning, and more like which nerves are being impacted.
Correct. Yeah. And the vertical positioning really just dictates, what below, how high up and what everything below is going to be affected. Mm-hmm. And so that's where they were trying to figure out that. And then the positioning of where it affected the spinal cord determines what other sensory items are going to be lost, if you will.
Yeah.
So this is a part that is going to be tough to talk about. But when I think about your wife and Lillian and Henry, when you're at the hospital and you and Kari are going through this stuff, Nick, and you're thinking about the future and you're thinking about, whoa, like what, not understanding the tornado that's happening in the moment. Your wife goes home and the conversations start happening, and just how did your kids and how has Kari been in, I guess, absorbing this?
Right. And that's where I feel like I probably had the easy part of it. Right. Because when all of those really intense questions, I'm in the hospital doing tests. And I was in the hospital for like a week before I transferred to the outpatient piece of it, where we started rehab.
So you never left the hospital?
53 days.
You were in for 53 days. You were in the hospital?
Correct.
Okay.
And every day, Kari and the kids, came up and visited. And that's when, those questions happen on the drive to and from, she said her son asked, like, is dad gonna die? Which I couldn't imagine, having to answer that question. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, no, it's just the future is going to look different, right? Mm-hmm. We'll still be around, still have the mind, still can do really whatever we want to do, but it will take a different look.
Yeah.
So, But they didn't, nobody asked me those questions. So I had the easy road in that regard.
Mm-hmm. In the last couple of years, has it been, from a parent to a child standpoint, just the age of what they can comprehend and what they can't, have you been able to have some pretty great dialogue? Because you are now going to the Craig Institute for 4 weeks at a time, doing this incredible rehab. And so have you been able to have, I guess, some really curious conversations with them and to be open and just answer the questions they might still be having?
Yes, we have. And that's kind of the nice part with the kids. Like, we do therapy at Avera, Craig Hospital, BARWIS, and the kids have gone and seen those places. They've watched me do the rehab. They've seen other people there in more difficult situations, I would say. Yeah. Different injuries, higher injuries, more obstacles to overcome. And so hopefully they've kind of, we've talked about perspective and we've learned how these people have gotten injured, and they've been very open with that. And I think that helps our kids kind of learn about just different aspects of life. And they've seen these people work really, really hard and still do really, really cool things. And that it doesn't mean, that it's over, right? Yeah. You still have a really cool opportunity to live a great life.
It is all about perspective, isn't it?
Correct. Correct. So I guess if they gain anything out of that, other than they have to help me get a lot of things around the house, they've gained a lot of perspective on life and appreciation.
When I first met you, it was at a fundraiser or just a celebration event for Game Plan for Hope in Hills, Minnesota. And it's an organization that's meant to help people with your types of injuries. Mm-hmm. And I was standing outside the front door, and you pulled up in your car in the street, and I saw you on your own go up 5 steps. Mm-hmm. And I remember you got to the door, and your wife was right behind you, and she wasn't touching you. She wasn't even looking at your legs. She was just letting you do your thing. Talk to me about the intentionality behind that.
Yeah, there's, I think she's rewind 6 months ago, and I probably would have asked for help, or she would have known I've needed help. Yeah. But I think she's seen, the confidence and the ability grow, where she knows that I'm going to be able to do it. And if I need it, I'm going to ask her to step in. Yeah. And so that is, that is really, really nice. It's a nice boundary, if you will, to not feel like she has to do that. Yeah. But I know she's there if I need it. Yeah. And good for her too, to not feel like she has to be there too.
Right. And I guess we should say that you are able to walk with, what are they called? They're not crutches. They're
just 2 independent canes, that I'm able to use. And I've been in that, state of mobility for, I guess, probably about 1.5 years. Yeah. I still have to use a wheelchair from time to time to get in and out of the hospital to go to rehab, just simply because the distance from where the parking is to where the rehab occurs, I'd be exhausted by the time I got there.
You walk basically less than 1 mile an hour.
Right.
You could walk.
Yeah.
When you're going though. So there's hope there. It's better than not walking. Yeah. When I was watching it, I remember you were lifting your legs and your feet just over the top of each step. And I thought, this is amazing. I saw, I'm just like me, I'm kind of I have a preventative nature. I'm looking at that going, I think we should do more to prevent you from doing a faceplant on the steps, you know? Mm-hmm. But it wasn't necessary. You made it. And your wife had confidence in you. What a beautiful relationship that you guys have, in that it's not like enabling is not the right word, but a trusting relationship. You're getting better. You're doing the hard work, and you're, for lack of a better word, you're back on your feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we are. And, a friend of ours told us this pretty early on in the process that, it's the little things that rip you apart, but the big things that bring you together. Mm-hmm. And we're in a pretty big thing. Yeah. And so I feel like our family has gotten extremely tight knit, even more so than we were before. just because of these experiences here the last couple of years.
Yeah. I suffer from restless leg syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
I'll sit at night and my legs will jump. And I get this weird feeling, kind of like creepy crawling, and I can't quite make it go away. And then they'll just jump by themselves. And I worked for years trying to pin that down exactly, like what in my diet or what am I doing that causes that? You're experiencing some of the same thing. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. So these spasms or spasticity that I have in my leg, it's just my nerves trying to fire the muscles. And there are times when it's helpful. There are times when it's a hindrance. When you stand, my muscles will fire and spasm, even though if I don't have control over them 100%, it'll help me stand and it'll help me walk. Now, there are times in my left leg in particular, which is my weaker of the two legs at this point, where they will spasm and I can't break the muscle to take a proper step. So my gait looks off, and then I overcompensate with different muscles in my body to move that leg forward. And so it is a fine balance of, is it too much? Is it not enough? So it's a constant conversation in therapy about what to do about it.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of therapy, has there been talk of stem cell therapy?
Yes. We did a stem cell treatment in June of this year. There's no definitive research or that says it's going to help repair a spinal cord injury. But it's certainly not going to hurt. So we tried it. We're only about 22 weeks out, I think, from it. And so I guess I can't say I've noticed anything drastically different, but.
Is that a spinal injection or is that a bloodstream?
It was a IV bloodstream, and then because stem cells are too big to break the blood-brain barrier, it was an injection into my nostrils, my nasal cavity.
Ooh.
And so that way was to get them right into the central nervous system.
Oh yeah, because that spinal fluid, I think that surrounds your brain cavity too, right? And there is that blood-brain barrier, and that's the barrier that like if you have leaky gut can be like, what's the word? Broken.
Yeah. And so, stem cells, you name it, we've had stuff thrown our way of, have you thought of this? Have you tried this? Have you asked this? Yeah. And we've passed that all on to the doctors, particularly when we were in the hospital, and they did the research and they came back and gave us tons of ideas and tons of tips. And, we'll try anything that will make us more efficient. We're going to explore.
Yeah. That's great.
I hear a lot when people go through any type of traumatic type of life altering situation that they would have never have known the blessing behind, how God is always ahead of it, and like the people that you've been able to meet, Nick, your family, like all the people who've stepped in. And we were just talking before we started recording about those that are in professions, like the physical therapists and the people out at Craig Institute who are working day in and day out to help you get back just movement or whatever it might be. And when you show determination on your side, how much more determination on their side, right? Like just when someone wants to get better, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is, it's like the person in the profession on the other side is like, let's go, rooting you on. And so you've had a community wrap around you. Can you just share what that has been like for you and your family?
Yeah, it's been pretty remarkable. And just the timing of it, how it all kind of worked out too is kind of bizarre. When we were in the inpatient, I thought I was going to walk out of there. Right.
Yeah.
And I stated that every single therapy session that we had, like, when do we let's get walking here. Let's do it. But, their goal is to get you functional at home. Yet they entertained and helped me, do the proper things to be able to walk and take steps. And they were amazing. And stepping out into outpatient, we really got down to work and started really working on walking again and really working towards those goals here locally. And we do a ton of that. We just can't do enough here locally in a day. insurance, just different restrictions with that. And so we've gone out to Denver, Colorado quite a bit, 10 times in the last 2 years, covering, what was it, about 30 months or 30 weeks, excuse me, of therapy out there to do 4 hours of therapy a day. And all of that really kind of came about with people we know here that told us about it. And we researched and we reached out to the people, and going out to BARWIS and Craig Hospital out there has been just really life-changing. And the trainers at BARWIS, I mean, they're like family to us, to be honest with you. And same with the folks at Craig Hospital. It's been wonderful. And the care we get here is second to none.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. We just can't do enough of it.
Yeah. I want to dig into your heart for a second, because your heart posture through all of this has, from somebody who has been following you and watching. Yeah, I know. Take a drink. I want to understand what you've gone through as an individual, Nick, and just, have you gone through moments of why me? Like, why? And then how have you relied on the Lord through this whole thing?
So yeah, there's a lot of why me. I mean, I just woke up. It's boring, right? It's not cool. You meet a lot of people that have been injured doing different things, doing kid stuff, right? Having fun. Swimming pools, ATVs, just, they had a stroke of bad luck. And so the why me is, it's hard to, I don't know. I didn't have I got to get to work in rehab right away, where others had to, maybe had surgeries and just had to recover a little bit longer before they could do it. So I feel like I had to hit the ground running because of that. And so, I'm sorry. The why me is, I try not to dwell on that too much, because it ultimately doesn't matter. No. Here we are. Yeah. We know the path out of it. The path out is work and rehab, and the people that we have met, and the connections that have happened because of this, has been pretty remarkable. And it's hard to wrap your brain around, about how it all worked, and the timing and everything just really, worked pretty wonderfully. Like, for example, going out to BARWIS, I'd never heard of them. But
and where are they?
They're in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
And there was another family whose son got into an automobile accident here in Sioux Falls, and they came to visit us in the hospital, and they told us about it. And they're like, "You need to go there. You need to reach out to these folks, and they could help you." And so we put an inquiry online, and they called me the day I was leaving the hospital for the first time. I get the phone call. I'm in my driveway. I haven't even been inside my house yet. And they're asking me the story. How can we help you? What can we do? And I'm like, well, we just don't know the timing of what it would take to get out there. And he goes, if you told me you wanted to be here tomorrow, I'd make room for you.
Oh.
And we were there 5 weeks later, and it all worked out. And the same goes for Craig Hospital. We never did our inpatient rehab there. We got accepted into their outpatient program. And what they're telling me now, my PT told me earlier this year out there that someone like me who didn't do inpatient there wouldn't be eligible for their outpatient program because they have so many people.
Yeah.
But we got in ahead of the curve. We're now in that family, and we can continue to come back. So the timing of when all of this occurred is just hard to explain.
Yeah. It sounds like you were just full of gratefulness. Mm-hmm. Complete from the beginning to the end of not a why me. It is what it is. And it's go time.
It is what it is. Here's what we want to do. We want to walk again unassisted. That's kind of been our goal from day one. And every single person that we've encountered has entertained that and helped us work towards that. They didn't have to.
Yeah.
They could have told me, not a chance. but they've helped us. They've helped us every step of the way.
Wow. There's this book that Heather and I really love. It's called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And the premise is that when you have a 2X, like a 2 times multiple mentality, it's easy for you to get distracted. It's easy for little things in your life. But when you have a 10X mentality, like you have, where no, the goal is not just to walk around assisted and get better at that. Mm-hmm. The goal is to walk unassisted, which is a big goal, isn't it? And that helps you focus and helps you narrow down really the things that you spend your time on. And also, according to the book, you delegate or give away things that don't fit the 10X vision.
Sure.
Is that something that you learned from someone, or where did this goal come from in your life?
Yeah, trying to gather my thoughts here. I mean, the reality is, if we didn't do anything else, if this is where we ended up, we're really a success, right?
Yeah.
Paralyzed to walking with canes. We want more. We want more. And because we've gotten this far, we know what it takes to do the rest. And that's where the frustration kind of comes into play, is now all of these other little fine nuances of walking. It's not just moving the leg. Now it's using the right muscles to move the leg. And so now there's just a flood of all these different things that you have to take into account and think about, is kind of the new challenge, to be able to step properly and walk around like you guys walk around, where you're not doing things differently. But
if people see you out and about, because another thing you and I were talking about is when something happens and now you look different when you walk. You don't just walk right into Aldi. You walk in with 2 hand-assisted canes, and people hold the door for you the minute you get out of your car, like forever away, because they want to be helpful. And you have said that you would rather them not. And that is not I don't appreciate you helping. It is I can do this.
Yeah.
And then the curiosity from like kids and someone coming up to you and asking, hey, like, what happened? What's your stance on that?
Yeah. And the holding the door thing, it's nice. I think it's just Midwestern nice, right? They see you coming from half a parking lot away, and they're going to hold the door for you.
Yep.
Which is wonderful. But I keep telling them, like, hey, I don't need it. I can get that. Thank you. And they'll still stand there and they'll greet me. And it's great.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. I love it. The thing about what happened or whatever,
the questions,
yes. If you have what I learned early on, when I was still in the wheelchair, another disabled person in a wheelchair, they'd roll up to you and be like, hey, what the heck happened to you? They would just be very forthright and saying, what's going on with you? And you'd answer it. I was kind of taken aback initially, like, boy, that guy's out there. And so you answer that. And so when people ask that, I kind of like it, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me in that regard, because I'm so used to retelling it or saying it. So it's okay to say, hey, what's going on?
Yeah. It's okay to ask the question and be curious.
Yeah.
One last thing in all of this, Nick, is getting up in the morning. Like every morning you get up, and the physical piece you are working so hard on, but how do you keep yourself grounded and centered on just the mental side of things? Like, because you still have to work, you still have to take care of your family, you're still a husband, you're still a father, you're still all these things. And so how do you really stay grounded from a mental, emotional, and spiritual side?
That's probably the hardest part, to be honest with you. Because at times it feels like you're doing a really selfish thing.
Yeah.
Right. Someone's got to give time in the day, be a dad, be a husband, work, have a career, but then also try to get better. And so fitting all of that in is very, very difficult. And, quickly the first things to sometimes go, especially when you're not in an intense rehab situation, is, maybe my homework, right? The workouts at home. Maybe I lax on those because, man, I just hadn't seen my kids for a month. I was in Denver for an entire month and I didn't see them. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do something different with them.
Yeah.
And so that's the hard piece, is trying to figure out navigate all that. And then of course they're in high school and they want nothing to do with a dad, right? They want to be with their friends, which we encourage as much as possible too. So that's the biggest mental challenge for me, is how to split up the day, how to dedicate time to make sure you're not just going through the motions in one of those aspects, and making sure that when you are in it, you're giving it full on 100%. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is there anything as the audience and us, and just what would be a number one prayer or something that we can just love on you and your family through? Like, what currently are you walking through? We heard what your ultimate goal is, so that's something to definitely be praying about. But is there something that we can do as a community, or just to be able to love on you guys back?
Well, I mean, I look at it a little bit differently. I mean, I see, like I said, if we stop doing what we're doing, we're going to be just fine, right?
Yeah.
I've met a lot of families that seem like their road is a lot longer than mine. I've seen a lot of parents with kids that don't have careers, don't have spouses and kids of their own, taking care of them. And I just don't understand how they would be able to manage that. It seems really incredibly difficult to me in seeing those situations.
Are you talking about kids who have been injured and now the parents are taking care of the kids?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Young kids, or even kids in their, high school, early college age. I mean, it's just, you don't have that type of support system that we're lucky enough to have.
Yeah. So the prayer is not for you, it's for others, is what it's.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's the way I feel. I feel like, that's the way I feel.
That's actually that's beautiful. Well, I've met your wife, and she's fabulous. And so to hear her side of the strength and I guess just determination that you both have for all of this, like the uncertainty that once was, I feel like you guys just have such a beautiful grasp on the future, and it's really beautiful. And so I guess we're blessed to know you guys truly, and we're here cheering you on in a big way.
Thank you. Well, we both have a pretty similar mindset, and we kind of want what we had.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we're working for it.
Oh, well, Nick, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being a part of the Fortitude family.
Thank you.
And if anybody wants to reach out to you and ask questions, is that okay?
And, by all means. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
That'd be great.
All right. Well, thank you for listening and tuning in today. We appreciate everyone.
Thanks so much, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. We want to change lives through this podcast. And if you want to support this podcast or our guests, please see the links below for our Patreon and giving links.
And like and subscribe, and also share our podcast as much as possible. Thank you.